Today on Locked On Red Wings, Zadina on his way out, DeBrincat might still be on his way in, and breaking down new defenseman Justin Holl.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I'm a podcast producer for the daily JAWWJ News Radio podcast. Well, Scotty's a host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News. And this episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/Locked On today to get started. Got a few things for you guys today. Well, I don't know what today is. Zadina was cleared waivers. We talked about that the other day, that he was waived. He cleared waivers. And it looks now, per reports from Elliot Friedman, that the Red Wings might be on their way to just straight up terminating that contract. Not buying out, terminating that contract. There is a difference there. We're also going to talk about the fact that, rumor has it, if you trust Andy Strickland, the Red Wings are one of two finalists for Alex DeBrincat. We're going to talk about that. And then also Justin Holl. We're going to finally get into like the more in-depth conversations about the Red Wings' new acquisitions, starting off with the much controversial defensive signing with Justin Holl. But first, Scotty, you got to circle right back to the beginning. Filip Zadina. Elliot Friedman reported today that the Red Wings are looking to terminate his contract. And that has to do with the fact that Zadina supposedly, reportedly, allegedly, choose your adjective, is not going to report to the Griffins if he doesn't make the team out of training camp, which would be a violation of his contract. Therefore, if I have this correctly, and I've been wrong before, but if I have this correctly in my brain, the Red Wings could therefore terminate his contract, not buy it out, which means the Red Wings would save whatever it is, $1.85 million a year, $4.8 million total, and Zadina would be giving up $4.8 million guaranteed dollars to bet on himself with another team. Scotty, thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I guess I'm not very surprised. I mean, just given the information we've been told and what we've learned over the last 48 hours, I'm definitely not surprised by that. That being said, it is a heck of a statement to intentionally walk away from that much money, right? That's the difference between a termination and a buyout. A buyout is both sides agreeing on some price point, some amount of money, and the team pays the player that much money, and then they're off the roster. Where a termination this is void. This is no longer this is no longer holds up. You violated rules, that you don't get paid anything. So leaving the amount of money he has remaining on his contract and walking away from that to go be just a UFA for any team to just come pick him up is I give a statement, and he certainly will. With the only reason he cleared waivers was because of the money. If he was an entry level deal or whatever, he would have got picked up by someone. So we'll see what happens, but I don't know. It's really odd. He will absolutely find work somewhere else. I'm not sure in what capacity. I'm not sure how many teams are really looking at Zadina right now in 2023 and are like, man, we really need this dude in our middle six even. So I'm not really sure in that regard, but I mean, a change of scenery, a chance to reprove himself, more of a chance to make the team out of camp wherever he ends up, assumed. I wish nothing but the best for him, truly, but it's a heck of a statement to walk away from that money to I guess bet on yourself is the phrase.
Well, yeah. So his average salary, his AAV is 1.825, but he's walking away from over $4 million because he gets paid a little bit more every year. The first year of his contract was $915,000. This year would have been $1.83 million. Next year would have been $2.73 million. So obviously the AAV is what counts against the cap, but that doesn't necessarily need to align with what you're actually getting paid as long as the money lines up at the end of the contract.
Right.
So he's walking away from the most amount of the money in the last 2 years to bet on himself. I get it from one standpoint. He requested a trade because of his contract. He knows that no team is going to want him. So his choices are just get paid his $4.5 million with Grand Rapids and hope to figure it out, make your way back up to the Red Wings. Or, like we have been saying, bet on yourself, sign a lesser contract with another team, because that's what it's going to take. He's going to have to sign for less, like a $950,000 contract with another team, because at that number, a team would take a waiver on a 23-year-old guy, hoping you could strike on some of that upside and hope that you can really make it big with that team to get into your next contract, a big one. But that is a lot of money to just be willing to step away from. And he is just, it's just wild to me. That's all there really is to it. It's a wild gamble by him. And like you said, I'm going to say it too. All I can say is best of luck. I really hope nothing for the best, but I mean, if you're right, man, you're going to prove all of us wrong. But so far I would just take the $4.5 million and hope on, free agency the next time around to get that start.
I don't, I mean, like, that's the thing. Like, if he truly believes, if he's an opportunity away from really kind of making a big splash and reproving himself, then he's doing the right thing. It's just, that's a heck of a financial commitment to walk away from, given the lack of production he's had at the NHL level so far in his career.
Yeah. Absolutely. Scotty, let's move on now to talk about the new addition to the Red Wings in Justin Holl. We're going to talk about DeBrincat last at the end of the episode, just some more rumors surrounding him. But Justin Holl was signed by the Red Wings to a 3-year, $3.4 million per year contract last weekend. And we kind of briefly went over it in our weekend recap on Monday. We're going to start kind of breaking down these guys a little bit more in depth. And Scotty, a lot of people are equating this to the Ben Chiarot signing last year, another controversial player on the ice, controversial as in like his ability to play the game on defense, signed to a fairly big cap hit with the Red Wings. And, it's not as egregious in my opinion, right, as Ben Chiarot. Where do you stand on the Justin Holl contract?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about it a little bit in like the "Hey, free agency is over" episode, right? But I definitely don't dislike it as much as the Chiarot deal. That one, pretty immediately, both of us were like, I don't know. Like, we'll see. There's, I guess, a spot for him in the lineup, but that one was kind of a head scratcher. This one, I'm a lot more in favor of. I think I still said it was my least favorite signing, but that doesn't mean I dislike it. That's just, everything's a spectrum there for that kind of thing. I really don't. I think that he has the ability to be a solid defenseman on this team. Like, that's really what it comes down to. I know that a lot of people in Toronto have had their opinions of him, and I know in the playoffs especially, he kind of got scapegoated a little bit at times, but I really don't think that this guy is like a traffic cone back there. And there's a lot of analytics that kind of back that up too.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think part of the reason why it's not as egregious as a Chiarot deal, one, Chiarot was signed for 4 years and like $4 million, whereas Holl signed for 3 years and $3.5 million. And that does make a difference, especially with the cap going up. He's 31 years old. And you got to remember, I don't know if you guys realize this, but he played the most minutes out of anyone on the Toronto Maple Leafs. He was forced into a position where because they have a pretty shallow defensive pool, forced into a position where he was playing as the, number 2 D-man next to Morgan Rielly. Like, he was the guy with Toronto Maple Leafs. He's not going to be the guy with the Detroit Red Wings. They're going to have him play his defensive style game. He's going to play PK, but it'll be line 2, maybe line 3, probably line 2 with what he's making.
Probably 2.
And that less exposure is probably going to benefit him to playing better. I don't love the signing. I want to put that out there. Like, I still am like, I don't know why. Besides the fact that he's 6'4" and he's a right-hand D-man, like, those are the only 2 things that really scream at me like, oh, we needed this guy. But I don't think it's as bad of a signing as most people are making out to be. I think there is a good role for him on this team if he's utilized correctly. don't put him out there and give him more Sider minutes. It's that simple, and he'll be fine.
I agree.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to continue the conversation on Justin Holl. But first, I got to talk to you guys today about FanDuel. Take your first swing at betting MLB on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets, up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 you can spend betting everything from the money line to the over-under to who you think is going to hit that first home run of the night, all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockdown and get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockdown. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty and I are talking about Justin Holl and his contract right now. Definitely a little bit too long of a contract, a little bit of an overpay, and if you ask me, but I think that just comes with the territory in free agency, right?
Yeah, well, that for sure, and the saturated kind of weaker class certainly plays into that as well. But at the end of the day, this is a need. This was not only just like a need, like, oh, the Wings just needed one right-handed D, man. Like, this was a like catastrophic need. This was a desperate need. You needed a right-handed defenseman more than maybe anything else outside of like a 40 goal scorer,
yeah.
Like more than maybe anything else this entire offseason, right? And you addressed that, and he's not like the most physical like defenseman in the world, but like last year, Joe Veleno was third on your team in hits. Like that's probably like the sign of probably not a very physical hockey team, to be honest with you. Like, I love Veleno, but you know what I mean? Like that's just kind of like Adam Ernie was second, right? Like we talked about that all the time for a lot of the season. Adam Ernie was one of your highest hit total guys. And I know like hits is a whatever stat that I just love for no reason, but like it's and Holl isn't even, again, like he's not even some like 200 hit like he's gonna get whatever his 130 hits. He's gonna make it a little more physical, but just having a sturdy right-handed D man. Again, he won't be playing I don't even know what his average time on ice was this past season, but it certainly will be lower this season. His average, I have his total time on ice. That does me no good. But regardless, like my point is just that he will be much more in a role that's suited for him. He fills a need that this team very much needed. And I don't think personally, I don't think the term and the length is like some albatross. I don't think that it's like,
no, it's 3 years.
The team can't recover from it or whatever. Like, again, unless he's a complete traffic cone out there, which some people think he is, but unless he is like the worst defenseman we've ever seen, this is pretty easy to overcome, even if he is awful. Like, I don't know. Is it over his value? Yes. Is it like crippling to the cap or the team? No.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I don't like the term. I don't like the money, but also at the same time, it's 3 years. So next year's trade deadline, you could move him out if you really needed to. Like, it's not. Granted, he does have a modified no trade clause. I believe it's 10 teams, but like it's like you said, it's not an albatross, and especially with the cap going up, it's not that big a deal. Now, let me give you some numbers and this is where it'll get tricky, because this is one of those ones where you could pick your number to fit your narrative, right?
I love narrative ball.
We love narrative ball here. So let me throw up his player card, and you'll see exactly what he's good at and exactly what he's bad at according to goals above replacement, if you trust that kind of metric. And so you can see here that he's a pretty solid defensive defenseman. That was in 80 games played, most minutes on the team with the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Right,
obviously,
that was just under 21 minutes. I finally got the average ice time. It was in between 20 and 21 minutes a night.
Which is like, again, he had the total cumulative most out of anyone on the team in even strength minutes, 5-on-5 minutes last year. And you can see it here. Like, he played top pair minutes. You can see it on the graph at the bottom. He was in the 77th percentile of even strength defense when it comes to goals above replacement. Like, he's good in the defensive zone. Now, he's not great according to microanalytics. If you trust microanalytics, again, this is all just like, this is what we have to work off of in the offseason.
Down a player. It's analysis. Yeah.
He's not really great at zone denials, but he's great at recovering the puck inside the defensive zone and getting the puck out of the defensive zone, which are huge play areas of need. You can see here that his goals above replacement actual was better than his expected, because he's not an offensive defenseman and he was playing on a great Toronto team that was great at producing offense. So it probably inflated his offensive abilities. You saw he also played 237 minutes of PK1 time. So it's like, this is a guy that, yeah, he became kind of the guy to pick on with the Toronto Maple Leafs, but that's also because he played the most minutes against the hardest or the toughest opponents that the other team had to offer. That's not going to be his role in Detroit. Like, he's going to be fine, I think. I think he'll probably be, and I'm going to say it now, I think he'll probably be better than Sherratt on the ice, to be honest.
Flaming hot take there. Yeah. Like, it's like, I mean, if that's the bar, people are going to be fine. Like, if the bar is just, is he going to be better than Sherratt? I can pretty much promise you, yes. I mean, like, when we pulled Sherratt's numbers up on like his player card up last season, right? When we did this exact thing with him, I mean, that was a guy that had like a single digit percentile, right, in his defensive numbers. Like that dude was almost in the 80th percentile in defensive. Like, I don't know. Again, I think he just got like really scapegoated in the playoffs. But like the belief that he was some.
This is Ben Sherratt, by the way.
Right. Right. Was that this season too?
Yeah. Worst team. Right. Worst team. Keep that in mind. But
can you find last season? Is that possible?
I can only do 1 year and 3 year. Oh, wait. No, wait. Yeah, never mind. I see it right here. So this was the year we signed him.
Right. Yeah.
Even worse,
See,
actually.
That's my point. Like this, for those listening and not watching, that is a first percentile defense with a second percentile overall. That was the year we signed him.
That means he was in the top 99%.
Correct. Right. 99th percentile is you're the best in the league. He was first percentile. It was literally the worst you can be when we signed him. The year he was coming off when we signed him. This guy was almost in the 80th percentile defensively. Like it's so beyond not even comparable. I have no clue where people are getting that from. And again, I actually think that if he goes out there and puts up a 70th to 80th percentile, you know, he's not going to play. He's not going to give you any production offensively, but like if he goes out there and is a fine second pairing right-handed D-man, I think he's honestly like, I think he's probably worth the, 3.5 AAV you're paying him. That's what this team wanted out of that 3.5 mil. If he does that, then it's fine. He's not going to be the best defenseman in the league. No, he's probably going to get burned to the outside a couple of times. That happened in the playoffs a lot, right? That's what he got scapegoated for. He's going to play 17 a night and be behind Sider. I really don't think it's going to be that big of a deal.
Yeah, and I mean, his expected goals above replacement is 3.1. It's nothing massive, but it is positive. He's contributing across the season and expected 3 extra goals to the team.
All of his Corsi and like goals expected and all that is above 50%.
Yeah, his now see, there's where the other side would come in though. So his expected goals for percentage at 5-on-5 was 56%, which is well above 50, which is you want to be above 50%.
Yeah,
but if you filter it by relative, then he's at negative 0.9. And that's where people who are Justin Holl haters are going to say, hey, relative to his teammates on the Toronto Maple Leafs, you know, when he was out there,
the best roster in hockey, maybe.
When he was out there, the team faced almost one more quality shot for than, or faced one more against than had for them across the season. So like, there's that. That's going to be the counter argument. And like, again, but that's because he's not a perfect player. But I'm just trying to make the argument that he's not as bad as people are making him out to be.
Right. That's really all I think we're both trying to say. That's certainly all I'm trying to say is like the comparisons to Sherratt, or like this is some terrible, terrible signing, or like this dude is going to go out there and be the worst defenseman, and we're just going to have 2 just awful defensemen down there, you know, with him and Sherratt. If that ends up happening, it's because of like some outside factor. Like it's not because of anything we've seen that would like actually lead anyone to believe that.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk more about just finish up the Justin Holl conversation, and then we'll talk about the Alex DeBrincat news. So stay tuned to Locked On Red Wings. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, I guess the final question I have regarding Justin Holl would be, where do you slot him in the lineup?
I'm pretty confident he's going to play second pair right-hand D-man. I mean, when looking, like, he's obviously not going to play top pair. Sider is the right hand up top. He's not going to play left. You got him. You went out there and addressed right-handed D-men. So I guess the only debate is, like, if you really wanted to shuffle some stuff around, see if Ghost Bear could play right shot at points, then maybe you move him down to third even. But, like, I mean, with the money you're paying him, I would imagine that the plan is throughout the season, things can change, ebbs and flow of the year. You gotta take his performance into consideration. If he is awful and if he is just a traffic cone, then obviously you got to move him down. But I would imagine on opening night and going into training camp, even, the plan is almost without a doubt for him to be the second pair right side.
Well, and see, that's the thing too, is you have roster flexibility for the first time ever. It feels like on the back end. Last year, it felt like we were just throwing out there what we had, but both Ghost Despair and Sherrod are left side D, but they can both play right side. Yeah. And so, you're looking at, it could be Sherrod and Holl. I feel like that'd be a black hole disaster. I'd want to stay away from that.
Yeah, agreed.
I wouldn't be opposed to, Shane Ghost Despair playing on the pair with Justin Holl. If Justin Holl is the defensive defenseman that we think he is, let me rephrase that. That makes it sound like you're really good. 3? I'm fine with that.
And you let Sherrod play right side third?
Yeah, I mean, Sherrod's got to play somewhere, right? So
yeah, he does.
But Ghost Despair plays a really solid two-way defensive game, but his primary thing that he does is, like, he's a puck-moving defenseman. He moves the puck up ice. Then you have Justin Holl. It's the same conversation we had with Filip Zadina and Oli Mata last year.
It was, peanut butter and jelly, baby.
So, I mean, like, there is that conversation where the peanut butter and jelly effect, it could work. Now, I don't know. I feel like Holl is pretty much a lock to play second pair on the right-hand side. Well,
then let Ghost play left side second pair.
Oh, but that would... You could also do Sherrod and then Ghost on the right side, Holl in the third pair. It's not top pair. We know that.
Yeah, so right now, if I had...
I love the flexibility.
Right, which is great. And that's the thing is, like, for the first time ever, we're actually going to have a team where, like, as the season goes along, we're not just, like, pigeonholed into this is how the pairings have to be, right? Mm-hmm. Like, we can have a discussion about, like, matchups or playing time or... like, injuries are going to happen, whatever. Like, you actually have flexibility, with is great. Right now, on, for whatever it's worth, on July 5th, I would have my top be Woman Sider still. My second, I would put Ghost left side second, Holl right side second. And then my third, I would put Mata left side third and Sherrod right side third.
Yeah, I like that. The only thing I'm hesitant, like, I like the idea of Ghost on second just because of the offensive upside. But
both paid him $4.5 million.
I feel like Justin Holl has to play second pair just because he's so capable of eating all those minutes. But so is Sherrod, and you don't want to pair those two guys together. I think it's going to be a situation where I think that obviously your top pair is going to get the bulk of the minutes, but I think your second and third pair are going to be split in minutes pretty evenly here, because I think that there's depending on how it works out. Now, if you have Mata and Sherrod together, maybe not.
Yeah, I was going to say, if they're the pairs that I just said, then no. It'll be the second line will get a lot more minutes than the third. But
because Ghost Despair and Mata makes a lot of sense, too, because Mata's that super defensive defenseman. I
agree with
also.
That. I think we see that rather often at points.
And, like, we could put Sherrod on the right side. The Red Wings could put Sherrod on the right side, but Ghost Despair did split, like, pretty much a 50-50 split, right side, left side at 5-on-5 last season. So he's more accustomed to it. So I feel like
you want to have the most expensive third pair, like, in the history of hockey, with Sherrod and Ghost.
or Mata and Ghost. I don't care.
Yeah, no, I agree. It would be funny if it ended up being, like, the third pair for a game ended up being like, there's $9 million on the third pair blue line. Like, that would be kind of amusing. But no, I think there's a lot of flexibility there for sure,
which is really fun to think about. And then you have Gustav Lundstrom as your seventh team man. And then when Simon Edvinsson gets healthy,
right,
who knows what could happen.
Edvinsson is where it really becomes a conversation. And we talked about that with the Yzerman comments the other day, and how he just wasn't ready to just hand over the baton and say that, Edvinsson's guaranteed to be on this team this year.
Yeah, nor should he.
To do.
Yeah, nor should he. Like, it should be something you have to earn.
This is better. Depth is better. Like, you can talk about, like, road blocking someone all you want. For me, having depth in your system will always be better. Always.
Absolutely. Let's move on now. We got about five, give or take minutes left here to talk about the Alex DeBrincat situation. So there's been a couple reports that have come out since the last time we talked about it. It's really strange. So we were of the belief that the DeBrincat train was basically dead in the water. And then reports come out. Jeff Merrick says that it's come down to two teams. The Islanders, whose general manager is Lou Lamoriello, and the Detroit Red Wings as the two finalists for Alex DeBrincat of the Ottawa Senators. I was like, oh, wow, I thought this was over. I thought Yzerman was basically out because they were asking for too much. They weren't letting him talk to the agents. And then Andy Strickland, who is a Blues insider, I believe, tweeted today that barring a sudden shift, and as always, things can change very quickly. My guess is that the Alex DeBrincat situation has held up Ottawa from signing Tarasenko, because that's its own thing, by the way, the Tarasenko saga. Once he's moved, likely to the Red Wings, that will open the door for Tarasenko to sign with Ottawa. So Andy Strickland, who following Tarasenko as a Blues insider, it would make sense, seems to indicate, and I don't know how close, obviously we trust Jeff Merrick more than Andy Strickland, but Andy Strickland's not nobody, believes that the Red Wings kind of have the edge here in the Alex DeBrincat sweepstakes. The reason I bring this up, Scotty, is because if the Red Wings, and we talked about this, after the Red Wings used their draft picks and it felt like they were out, and then they signed a bunch of people and to a bunch of money, I didn't really know what the direction of the team was. I said, what are we doing? Oh, maybe we're trying to do a Seattle thing. Stevie said some things about not spending big and blah, 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 and this and that. And if he gets DeBrincat in the end, I will own up to the fact that I got duped. Like, Yzerman absolutely duped me and had me believing that he was not getting that big name player this offseason. Also, if he gets DeBrincat following the draft and fleshing out the bottom 6 and bottom 2 pairs, this offseason becomes like an immediate A+. Like, this roster with DeBrincat, if you get DeBrincat in hindsight after all those other acquisitions, this roster is so much better than what it would be without him. That all those acquisitions suddenly make so much sense.
Yeah, so I don't want to. What I'm about to say is not an attempt to like get people too excited about it. Like, right, like that's still a heck of a hockey player and would take a heck of a move for the Red Wings to acquire. So I don't. What I'm about to say is not me saying like, oh, we're definitely getting him and everyone should like expect that and that's going to be awesome. However, I do think that if we were to acquire him, looking back at free agency and going, oh, wow, filling up the cap and spending money on throwing out 10 free agent contracts makes a whole heck of a lot more sense now, because the depth gets a lot better throughout the entire organization. And when the depth gets better throughout the entire organization, it makes trading expendable pieces a lot less of a big blow, right? When you're trading your whatever, I mean, whatever you think a player like that's going to cost. I mean, just looking at a guy like Berggren, I know we always kind of pick on him as like if a trade was going to happen, is always like one of the first names that's brought up. Losing him becomes significantly easier, if you're just getting DeBrincat, obviously. But also, again, you just went out there and your entire free agency plan was addressing depth. So now, okay, you lose Berggren. If you lose Berggren a month ago, you're losing one of your more productive forwards, like not ironically, like one of your most productive forwards on your team. Whereas now if you lose him, you're losing a bottom 6 forward that I don't want to say is like easily to replace. And I still think Berggren can be a really, we all think that he's trending in the right direction, is going to be a pretty solid hockey player throughout his career. But it just in the immediate future, it becomes a lot easier to get over that and accommodate for that on a night-to-night basis. So yeah, while I'm not like holding my breath, and I still, if I were a betting man, I would say that it probably still doesn't happen. But the hindsight of if it does, and then we look back at free agency, it would certainly make a lot more sense to be like, oh, wow, well, I mean, free agency, that really, the writing was certainly more on the wall than we maybe anticipated.
Yeah, I'm 100%. But my one fear is the fact that the Islanders are the other team that's left in the sweepstakes, and Lou Lamoriello has been known to move heaven and earth to get players that he wants when he wants them. Like, he is a guy not afraid to trade everything to get one guy. I mean, we saw that this last year. So that scares me a little bit. But the Red Wings have the fact that they have more cap space and more assets on their side. I just know that Stevie is not going to be as willing to give them up as Lou Lamoriello would, but they don't have nearly they have like $1 million in cap space. They don't have nearly the assets. So like, that's the other side of the coin. But yeah, that's the update on Alex DeBrincat. It seems like the Red Wings are one of the final two teams that could get him, and hopefully they do, because that would be awesome. I would love that.
Well, yeah, and it's just crazy, thinking back to the conversations we had earlier in the offseason about like, what would we have to give up type of thing. And it pretty much exclusively revolved around like, which first round pick this year are you going to give up? And so obviously the draft's over with, and you're not going to trade someone you just drafted. So like, it's just wild to think like, oh, like we're still in the running, and it looks like to have a pretty decent case to get him without having to give up now 9 or 17.
Absolutely. And then, so a couple other little factoids, tidbits. Chris Draper was promoted to assistant general manager.
Good for him, man.
Another title added on. He's still the director of amateur scouting, but now he is also going to be the assistant general manager. And he's been there since before Yzerman. So like, he's been there for like 12 years. This is well earned for him. Yeah. And he's done a great job as director of amateur scouting. I mean, I think he's got a future. It's not too long until he just gets poached right out of the system, like Verbeek and Jim Nill did. Like, it's just
maybe. I mean, his is a little deeper rooted of a connection with this organization specifically, and like he, if he wants to be a GM, I believe he absolutely is on a trajectory where he can. I'm not saying you're wrong there, but I also think that a lot of like all of his success has come from like the scouting side specifically, and he's an assistant GM. He will be the assistant GM that oversees scouting. Like do not get it twisted. You know what I mean? Like, that's his thing. So
it continues to be the best dollar ever spent.
Correct. Yes, very much so. Even decades later. So I'm so happy for him. It's an awesome thing. Obviously a great dude, big part of the city and the city's lore, and seeing him kind of continue to just get recognized for how good of a job he's doing still. I mean, everybody just talks about how he's the hardest working front office dude you've ever seen.
He was hardest working on the ice too, so it's not a surprise. Right.
Very on brand for the greatest dollar ever spent, for sure.
So, and then also we're also happy for Darren Helm, who retired today.
Happy retirement, bud.
2-time Stanley Cup winner, won the 2008 Cup with the Detroit Red Wings. I believe he was a rookie that year. And then in 2022, obviously he won with the Colorado Avalanche. So I think that was the longest gap between Stanley Cups, I think, in NHL history, if I recall, for an individual player. At the time, there was some record along those lines. That might not be completely what it was. But yeah, Darren Helm will always be remembered in Detroit for the shift he had against the Chicago Blackhawks in the playoffs.
The shift.
That penalty kill where he did it all himself.
Shift, baby.
And then wasn't he also the guy who scored that overtime winner against the Blackhawks to send them to the Cup final in 2009? So he had 2 really important moments to the Detroit Red Wings.
Darren Helm's the dog, man.
I mean, he was a fan favorite. I loved him. I mean, that last contract he got 4x4 at that time with that cap was insane. I don't know what Ken Holland was thinking, but fan favorite nonetheless. We're not talking about that aspect.
You could say that to a lot of the contracts.
Yes.
Ken Holland's given out. Yes,
absolutely. So yeah, Scotty, that does it. Do you have any final thoughts?
We ball.
We do ball. We'll be back with a new episode tomorrow. So stay tuned. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.
Every day.